When my parents fought, they left my brother and me sitting outside on the air conditioning unit. We were several stories high, and our love-crazed mom wouldn't let us inside, hoping Dad would feel remorse. But Dad didn't feel anything, he just found her annoying, slammed the door, and left. The wind was bitterly cold, and I hugged my thinly dressed brother close, crying and pleading for Mom to let us back inside. But she was only focused on her own anger, pointing at us and saying, "If it weren't for you two deadweights, I would have divorced him a long time ago. Shut your mouths. If you cry again, I swear you'll never come back inside." The wind dried my tears, and I silently promised never to forgive them. Later, Dad was drunk and got in an accident, hitting Mom with his car. They both ended up paralyzed. The insurance payout was in the hundreds of thousands, but I decided not to save them. Content. My parents were fighting again. The sounds of things crashing around filled the house. Anything they could throw, they did. My mom yanked my brother and me out of bed and shoved us toward the window. We were dressed only in thin long sleeves and sat barefoot, curled up on the air conditioning unit outside. Mom stood at the window, pointing at us and yelling, "Rick Grant, if you ever go after that tramp again, I'll take the kids and we'll all jump." Reeking of alcohol, Dad snapped back, "Then jump. Clara, you're always threatening to jump. Go ahead and do it. You jump, and I'll marry Lacey tomorrow." Mom's hair was wild, and she was shaking with rage as she threw a glass of water at him, screaming that he was no man. Dad didn't hold back either, slapping her hard as soon as the glass hit him. "Stop making a scene and divorce me already. I've been done with you for a long time, you crazy witch." He slammed the door as he left, hard enough to make the whole building shake. Mom sank to her knees at the window, covering her face and asking me in a daze, "Sonny, did you hear what he said? He doesn't want us anymore." I couldn't care less about their fight. We were on the 18th floor, and the wind was strong enough to blow my brother and me off at any moment. I shivered uncontrollably. "Mom, my brother and I want you. Please, let us back in. It's so cold out here." My brother's face had turned bright red from the cold, and his nose was dripping, almost slipping into his mouth. He huddled against me, his hands and feet freezing, like blocks of ice. But Mom didn't seem to hear us. She kept repeating, "He wants a divorce. He doesn't want us anymore." My feet were going numb, and I didn't understand why she'd stay by the window but wouldn't pull us back inside. It was early winter, and my brother was still young. If he stayed outside, he'd get sick. I flexed my numb fingers and stood up. I had to get my brother back inside first. I grabbed his hand and pushed him through the window, but suddenly, Mom jumped up and shoved me back. "Who said you could come back inside? Your dad wouldn't even glance at you too. What good are you anyway?" My brother wailed, terrified, but Mom only yelled at him, "If it weren't for you two burdens, I would have divorced him ages ago. Shut up. If you keep crying, don't even think about coming back in." Luckily, my brother had half his body inside already, so he tumbled into the room while I stumbled back, landing on the edge of the air conditioning unit. If I hadn't grabbed it quickly, I would have fallen. My upper body was clinging to the unit, my legs dangling below. I didn't dare look down, and I cried out to Mom to save me. She looked out, startled, but after a quick glance, she went back inside. "If you fall, don't blame me. Blame your dad for not saving you." With that, she shut the window, blocking out the wind and my pleas. My arms were aching, and tears poured down my face as I screamed for her. "Mom, I'll listen from now on. I'll never sneak my brother candy again. Please don't abandon me. Mom, I don't want to die. I really don't want to fall. Mom, I love you. I'll behave. I don't want Dad anymore." But no matter what I said, the window stayed shut. I felt hot and cold all over, my fingers stiffening. Then the air conditioner roared to life, blowing icy air over me. Mom had turned it on. She really didn't want me anymore. My heart felt like it was freezing over, the pain numbing as the cold seeped in. I couldn't hold on much longer. It was so cold. I couldn't understand why she'd treat us like this. Was it because Dad was cruel to her? My brother and I loved her. If they divorced, we'd still want her. But she didn't seem to want us. The wind dried my tears. I silently vowed that if I survived, I'd never forgive them. It was as if heaven heard my promise, as our neighbor Tess opened her window with an annoyed look. She squinted, her cigarette falling out of her mouth in shock. "Damn, girl. You cosplaying Batman up there or something?" I looked at her through teary eyes, and Tess finally realized something was wrong. She quickly banged on our door and came to pull me back inside. Her hand, tattooed with a butterfly, reached out and yanked me in with a firm grip. My legs were too weak to stand, and I sat on the floor, the warmth making my cheeks tingle painfully. Mom scowled, shooing Tess away before snapping at me. "What were you yelling about? I wouldn't really let you fall." "Oh, and that woman? Don't you dare speak to her again. She's trash. Can't you tell?" I opened my mouth to say Tess was kind, but my throat was too raw to speak. Mom was always saying bad things about our single neighbor, claiming a woman her age who hadn't married must have something wrong with her. But Tess was the one who had saved me. For the first time, I started to doubt what Mom had always told me. After a few minutes, I noticed an unusual silence. Where was my brother? I was 10, and he was 3 years younger, a kid who cried over everything. I found him slumped against the bathroom door, fainted from crying, his cheeks flushed and burning hot. He had a fever. My first thought was to call for Mom, but she'd locked herself in her room, listening to sad songs. I had no choice but to bang on her door. "Mom, Finn is sick. We need to take him to the hospital." But she didn't respond, so I started kicking the door. "Mom, stop listening to music. Finn's really sick. He was already frail, getting sick a lot when he was little." I was scared he wouldn't pull through this time, just like Grandpa and Grandma who had passed away. I kept kicking until she finally opened the door, and my foot landed on her shin. She yelped in pain and slapped me across the face. "Why are you kicking like an idiot? Just like your useless dad." I bit my lip, swallowing my tears. "Finn's sick, and you wouldn't come out." She interrupted me. "Why don't you ask your dad? Is he dead? Besides, I don't have money. If you can't find your dad, then deal with it." She slammed the door again. My brother's fever was getting worse. I hoisted him onto my back, one arm under his legs, and the other holding him steady. If his fever spiked any higher, it could be life-threatening. I went over to Tessa's door, and she opened it, a purse slung over her shoulder like she was heading out. Seeing us, she frowned. "What do you want?"